All of season 2 of the Percy Jackson series has now been released, so I thought it was time to take a deeper look at both the show as well as the book. Welcome to Movie Flame, I'm Morgan Ross, and today I'm going to go through every single thing that season 2 of this show changed from the Sea of Monsters book. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and sharing. It will greatly help to grow and sustain the channel. And if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, and you can also follow me on all of my other social media pages, all of which are linked down below, and all of which house similar content that I make here on this channel. Now, let's get into it. Both the show and the book start with Percy dreaming about Grover. However, the dreams are very different. In the book, Grover is running from an unidentified monster who we later find out is Polyphemus. And the location of where he's running is a deserted street in Florida. He then takes cover behind a row of bridal gowns in one of the stores, and that's the entire dream. In the show, however, Grover is not in Florida, but in a rainforest on an island. We see Grover find a satyr skeleton as well as panpipes, which did not happen in the book. Grover had actually had these panpipes long before this in the novels, as he was in possession of it in book 1. The show also sees Grover meeting Allison Sims as well as other demigods part of Luke's army. This never happened in the book though, and Allison Sims is actually a brand new character that the show created, so she played no part in the book. Them finding a strand of the golden fleece was another thing that the show added. The fleece never had any pieces ripped from it, and it was always whole on Polyphemus' island in the novel. The end of the dream sees Grover getting captured by a giant tentacle, but in the book, it was Polyphemus himself who captured him. In the show, Tyson is living with Percy and Sally, but this was not the case in the book. He never lived with them. Furthermore, the show actually had Sally meet Tyson before Percy and had her meet him at a homeless shelter. However, in the book, Percy was the one who met Tyson first, and he met him not at a homeless shelter, but at school. In the series, Percy and Sally know that Tyson is a Cyclops, but in the book, Percy actually had no idea that this was the case as his eye was covered by the mist. Sally had a dream about Kronos in the series, but this didn't happen in the book because there only Percy had a dream. The conversation the mother and son had went very differently for each medium. In the novel, Sally told Percy that she had talked to Chiron, who told her it might not be safe for Percy to return because the camp was having problems. Meanwhile, in the show, Sally talked about Percy going to camp and taking Tyson with him. Sally's line of
being a real hero and standing up for others
was not a line in the book either. That was made just for the show. We saw clips of Percy and Tyson at school, which looked to be a normal school with normal kids. But in the book, the school they went to was a progressive school for special kids. While the show showed us clips of them at school in the past, the book covers them at school in the present. There, Tyson is bullied and is also called the R word, which the show cut out. While at school in the novel, they go to gym class, and there the mist plays a factor again. Percy didn't realize that some of the students were Laestrygonian giants during a dodgeball game. The giants throw fireballs at them, and Tyson saves Percy by jumping in front of him. This scene in the show, however, was taken to the woods outside of camp, rather than at school during gym class. This sequence in the book ended with the wall of the gym exploding, which Percy gets blamed for and later leads to his expulsion from the school. The series had Annabeth show up in the Grey Sisters taxi on the streets of New York. However, in the book, she showed up at Percy's school during his gym class, and she actually took out the last giant with her knife. Also, this was not the first time that Percy saw Annabeth in the novel, because in the book, he had seen her shadow outside his apartment window. While Annabeth already had the taxi in the show, it was only after they escaped from the school that she called it for the first time. Instead, she had actually been walking on foot from Virginia to New York. Tyson mentioning that Percy looks at Annabeth's picture all the time was not a line in the book.
You look at a picture all the time, right?
And the mention of Annabeth dreaming about both Percy and Luke, and the mention of Annabeth calling both of them her boyfriends.
No wonder you dream about him.
That was not a line in the books either. Also, after they were dropped off, Percy and Annabeth talking about the letters they sent to one another and both leaving things out was made just for the show. That did not happen in the book either. Well, they were dropped off far away from camp in the series. In the book, they were actually dropped off right at the border. And instead of meeting the Laestrygonian giants when they arrived at camp, in the book, the camp was being attacked by giant metal bulls. In the book, Annabeth gave Tyson permission to enter camp so that he could save Percy from the bull. But in the show, she let him enter to save Tyson himself as he was about to be attacked by the giants. Unlike the bulls, the giants could not enter camp because the shield around the camp was still up. The one giant that entered was only able to do so because he latched onto Tyson, but clearly the other giants couldn't get past the shield. And this leads to another major difference from show to novel, because Percy, Annabeth, and Tyson witnessed Luke stabbing Thalia's tree. In the book, this had happened way before their arrival at camp, and they did not see it happen. In fact, it's not even known who did it. It was just Percy who suspected Luke. Clarice and her warriors successfully fought off the giants in the show, but in the book, her warriors were scattered on the ground, injured from the fight against the bulls, including Percy, who was badly injured and needed nectar, the food of the gods, to heal his wound. In the show, Clarice has the spear that her father Ares gave her, which Percy says was fixed.
Oh, you fix your spear.
Don't even.
But in the book, her spear was never fixed after he broke it in book 1. The camp deciding to kill Tyson did not happen in the book. His presence only caused a light stir. Him being there was not a big deal in the novel. Also, Tyson was not claimed right away. This didn't happen until much later after they arrived, actually occurring at dinner that night. In the show, Chiron was already removed from camp, and this was because he was the son of Kronos. But in the book, Chiron was still there at camp, and Percy spoke with him before he left. And the reason he was booted wasn't just because he was the son of Kronos. The main reason was because he was blamed for Thalia's tree being poisoned. Because again, nobody actually knew it was Luke who did it. Percy only suspected it. In the show, Percy was put on lockdown in his cabin, but this didn't happen in the book. And Annabeth coming to Percy's cabin to talk didn't happen in the novel either, nor did their fight while she was there. Tyson's monologue to Percy about how he lived on the streets was much more in depth in the show. And in the book, it was not Tyson that told Percy this, but Annabeth, with just a quick mention right after Percy discovered for the first time that Tyson was a Cyclops. Annabeth going to Thalia's tree at night was never mentioned in the book. This is obvious because the books are from Percy's point of view. In Percy's dream about Grover in the show while at camp, he sees Grover get taken to the cave by the tentacle. But in the book, that didn't happen because Grover was already there when the dream started. The show also has Percy see the golden fleece during this dream, but in the book, he is only told about it by Grover. And in the book, the golden fleece was actually mentioned twice at this point, once by Chiron before he left, and now by Grover in Percy's dream. But neither one of them actually said what the magical object was, just that it could save camp. This is very different from the show because there, Grover just straight up told Percy exactly what the golden fleece was.
The golden fleece.
It has the power to heal anything or anyone.
In the show, Grover remembered that Percy was in a taxi with Annabeth and Tyson.
Were you recently in a taxi with Annabeth and like a Cyclops?
But he did not know that in the novel. Percy had only been able to see Grover. Grover could not see him. On top of that, both of them were dreaming in the series.
You mean like
Like, are you in my dream or am I in yours or?
I think both? Like we're creating the same dream at the same time.
But in the book, it was only Percy that was dreaming and Grover was always awake, because that's how the empathy link works. The show also failed to mention that with the empathy link, if one of them dies, the other dies too. They also did not switch clothing, and Grover was never wearing a jacket in the book. He was always wearing the wedding dress. On top of that, Grover did not tell Percy the exact coordinates to his location.
30, 31, 75, 12.
Percy was only told that by the Grey sisters. In the novel, Percy and Annabeth didn't have the plan to sneak into Tantalus's office, and also that satyr that serves Tantalus was not in the book. All of that was made just for the show. The show has Annabeth talk to Chiron alone over an iris message discussing the prophecy, but in the book, their conversation took place in front of Percy right before Chiron left, meaning that Percy was not left in the dark about all of this. This also means that Chiron didn't ask Annabeth to keep all of this from Percy, which was a big emphasis in the show.
Not only can you not tell him, he can't know. There's something he can't know.
On top of that, Annabeth already knew about the prophecy long before this point, while in the show, this was the first time she learned about it. In the series, we meet Chris Rodriguez while at camp, but in the book, we never saw him here. He had already left camp to join Luke's army at this point. This meant that his talk with Clarice didn't happen either. Their relationship didn't start until much later in the series. And speaking of characters like this, the show cut Charles Beckendorf, the head of the Hephaestus cabin, who in the novel took Tyson in, taking him to the Hephaestus forges where Tyson could do some metalworking. Instead, the show had Tyson just do some metalworking himself while in the Poseidon cabin. In the show, Percy and Annabeth split up for the chariot race to give themselves a better chance of winning.
This is just about doubling our chances to win.
However, in the book, they decide not to race together because they got into a fight, which mostly revolved around Annabeth disliking Tyson. Also, the next day, Percy tells Annabeth about his dream with Grover, and she doesn't believe him, thinking that he was trying to distract her so that he could win. This also means that the dream sequence with Grover took place a good deal later in the novel. In the show, Annabeth has a plan to take Percy out so he can't go on the quest.
If the Poseidon chariot takes the lead, you take it out.
But this didn't happen in the book because she didn't need to stop him from going on the quest, as Chiron had not asked her to do that in the novel. In the show, they drove the Stymphalian birds away with the song Emotions by Mariah Carey. But in the book, they drove them away with a Dean Martin CD. In the book, the race was finished and Clarice won. But in the show, nobody won because the race was fully stopped during the attack. The show cut out Percy, Annabeth, and Tyson being punished for what they did to drive the birds away, being forced to clean the kitchens. While they did this is where the Golden Fleece is finally mentioned to be the thing that could save camp. And it was Annabeth that put this together based on the information they had gotten from Grover and Chiron. In the book, Percy and Annabeth told Tantalus about the quest they must go on, discussing the Golden Fleece, and also giving the coordinates. However, in the show, Percy told him this much earlier, before the chariot race, not after. The show has a whole sequence where Clarice chooses who she wants to go on the quest with her, and she chooses Annabeth and Chris, but this did not happen in the book. This also means that Annabeth did not turn on Percy by whispering to Clarice. Again, the whole plotline of Chiron telling Annabeth to keep Percy in the dark was not present in the novel. And obviously, Chris was not at camp at this point, he was with Luke, so Clarice didn't choose him either. Tyson and Percy talked to each other after the chariot race in both mediums, but in the book, this was just Tyson asking Percy why Annabeth didn't want him around. While in the show, their conversation focused around Annabeth betraying Percy. The show was another dream sequence with Percy and Grover, but this didn't happen in the book. Percy only had that first dream. This also means that Percy and Grover's discussion about Annabeth and Percy fighting did not take place, nor did the part about Grover saying he betrayed Percy with Mrs. Dodds in the last season, because in the book, Grover didn't actually betray Percy like that. That was something season 1 changed from book 1. Before Percy leaves in the show, he talks to his father.
I know the sea is yours, but I'm your only son.
But that didn't happen in the novel. In the show, Hermes mentions how he helped Percy in Vegas, but he did not say this in the book because they never met in Vegas. The whole plotline with Hermes at the Lotus Casino in season 1 was something added by the showrunners. So in the book, this was the first time Percy and Hermes met. In the show, Hermes was not alone, as he had his attendants George and Martha, two snakes that appeared out of his phone, which is another detail cut out. Hermes didn't have his phone in the series either. Also, Martha was the one that gave Percy the thermos in the series, not Hermes. In the show, Hermes gave Percy a boat to make it to the cruise ship, but in the novel, Poseidon provided Percy with the hippocampi to ride. The argument that Percy and Annabeth have on the beach didn't happen in the novel. That was created just for the show. And another thing created just for the show was Tantalus finding them and trying to kill them. That did not happen in the novel. They just left with no trouble at all. This also means that Tyson didn't run in and save them from Tantalus. He was just already there with them. Seeing Clarice go to the big house attic to get her prophecy was not shown in the book, which should be obvious seeing as the books are from Percy's point of view. This means we also didn't hear the prophecy this early. We learn this much later in the story when Clarice tells Percy pretty far into their quest, and we'll get back to that later in the video. And again, because this book takes place from Percy's perspective, this means we also didn't see all the scenes with Ares giving Clarice the CSS Birmingham and all of its soldiers. And speaking of her soldiers, in the book, they were all Confederate soldiers, but in the show, they were soldiers from all different time periods and wars. In addition, everything with Clarice not having the respect of her crew and having to earn it was another thing made just for the show. When Percy, Tyson, and Annabeth enter the cruise ship in the novel, the three of them just find an empty room and go to sleep. Percy then has a dream about Kronos, who taunts him about being a slave to the gods. And then it cuts to a very short dream about Grover, where he tells Percy to hurry. Meanwhile, in the show, they never go to sleep. Everything just happens during the day that they entered. Annabeth and Percy's conversation about Annabeth leaving him in the dark about something, again, did not happen in the book. On top of that, the whole scene with them seeing the Laestrygonian giants, seeing Allison, who again wasn't in the book, and their fight against Allison, did not happen in the novel either. All of that was made just for the show. In the show, they learn that Luke is on the ship from the key card that has Kronos' scythe on it.
Luke is here. This is the mark of Kronos.
But in the book, they learn he's on the ship because they themselves heard his voice while they were hiding in a bathroom. This also means that Percy and Annabeth's conversation, where Annabeth said that she wanted to save Luke while Percy wanted to kill him,
So, capture instead of kill.
did not take place in the novel either. In the show, Percy, Annabeth, and Tyson go looking for Luke, but in the novel, they did not. They were actually captured by Luke's army while hiding. The show also has Kronos' sarcophagus speak to Percy, but that didn't happen in the book, and nor did Percy's forehead hurting when he got close to Kronos. The show had Luke taking them down to his training facility, but this did not exist in the novel. Luke is also accepting of Tyson here.
He gets treated like an outcast just because his mother wasn't human. Here with us, he can use his talents as a master craftsman, and he'll be accepted.
But in the book, he actually talks down to Annabeth for aligning herself with the Cyclops. Tyson blowing up the ship to escape did not happen in the novel. The three of them just simply slipped out of the grasp of Luke's monsters and ran to a lifeboat. In the show, Clarice didn't have the right coordinates from Tantalus.
And those numbers aren't even the right ones.
But that didn't happen in the book. She always had the right coordinates. While in the lifeboat in the show, Annabeth tells Percy about the prophecy that Chiron was hiding from him.
The prophecy tells of a child of the eldest three, who upon reaching 16 years of age, will become a powerful weapon.
However, this did not happen at this point in the plot. It happened much later, and we'll get back to that further in the video. Instead, what they did on the lifeboat in the book was send an iris message to Chiron, but they were unable to hear what he was saying. In both the book and the show, they go to an old hideout that Annabeth had gone to with Luke and Thalia. But what happened here differs from both mediums. In the show, she finds a bracelet that Luke gave her, and we see a flashback of this. But none of that happened in the novel, and the bracelet that Luke gave her was something made up for the show. Instead, what happened at the hideout in the book was that Percy and Annabeth tell Tyson to go find Donuts simply to get rid of him. They then talk about how easy it was to escape from Luke on the cruise ship, which was not the case in the show because they needed a literal bomb explosion to get away. They're then interrupted when, to their surprise, Tyson really does return with donuts, and they realize that there is a monster donut shop right next to them. The shop ends up being connected to a life force of Hydra, and Clarice has to come in and save them on the CSS Birmingham. While Clarice saved them in the book, she actually attacked them in the show, blowing up their lifeboat and fighting Percy one-on-one. Then Clarice only allowed them to join her vessel when Annabeth stabbed key members of her crew, meaning she would need them. Meanwhile, in the novel, Clarice simply allowed them to come on board without question. But she refused to combine forces with them, which is another change from book to show. In the novel, we see Percy go to sleep again, and he has another dream through his empathy link with Grover. And this time, he actually sees the fleece for the first time, which he had seen long before this in a dream in the show. And he also hears Polyphemus give Grover a deadline, which makes Percy realize that they have to hurry. In the show, Clarice promised her crew that they would make it to the Fields of Elysium after they succeeded on the quest.
If the quest succeeds, I told them that when they returned to the underworld, it would be to the Fields of Elysium.
But she did not tell them this in the book. The scenes where Annabeth threw the bracelet into the ocean, Tyson found it, Annabeth threw it again, and Rainbow found it did not happen in the book, because again, the bracelet was something made just for the series. In the show, while on the CSS Birmingham, Percy realizes that he knows exactly where they are in the ocean and how fast they're going.
Oh, we're moving at 23 knots, 36 degrees, 44 minutes north. Hold up. How do I know that?
But in the novel, he realized he had this power earlier while they were on their lifeboat following their escape from Luke. While on the warship in the show, Percy and Annabeth have a talk as Annabeth tells Percy about her adventures with Thalia and Luke and how she messed up. However, this is yet another Percy and Annabeth scene that wasn't in the book and was made just for the series. What happened during this time in the novel was Percy overhearing a conversation between Clarice and her father Ares, as he repeatedly belittles and insults Clarice. This conversation did happen in the show, but it took place earlier before Clarice even boarded the CSS Birmingham, and obviously Percy was not present for it. There were also parts of their talk that were left out of the show, like Ares telling Clarice not to let Percy steal this quest from him. Clarice's conversation with Ares on the warship is sort of replaced with the conversation that Clarice has with Percy in the show. Instead of Percy seeing how hard it is to be a child of Ares, the two just talk about it.
I imagine your dad must be pretty tough to have as a dad. I say that having been body slammed by him.
During this conversation in the show, Clarice also tells Percy her prophecy and how she needed the help of friends to complete the quest.
To fail without friends. To fly home alone.
However, that didn't happen during this time in the book, but happened way later after they escaped from Polyphemus's island, so pretty much at the end of the book. When they enter the Sea of Monsters in the novel, Clarice immediately goes to the cannons because her plan from the start was to blow them up. However, in the show, she only used the cannons as a last resort after seeing her crew get picked off one by one. In the show, Clarice saves Annabeth from falling overboard, but that didn't happen in the book. The show also has Percy go out to the front of the boat to try and turn the tide, but this didn't happen in the novel either. Instead of doing that, he actually races to the engine room to save Tyson, but Scylla grabs him before he gets there and pulls him into the air. While up there, the boat explodes. Scylla then drops Percy, and Percy uses the wind from the thermos to push himself away from the wreckage and into the water. Meanwhile, while Percy does that, everyone else escapes the warship on the lifeboats, including Annabeth. This is very different from the show, where nobody gets off on a lifeboat, but is just sucked away as the ship slowly gets destroyed. And instead of being picked up by Scylla, Percy is left on the front of the boat until he and the boat get sucked up too. The show has Percy and Annabeth wake up on Cece's island in a spa room. However, in the book, Percy wakes up on a life raft with Annabeth, who had fished his unconscious body out of the water. While on this boat, Annabeth tells Percy about the prophecy that might be about him, which I mentioned earlier in the video happened after they escaped from Luke, not after they escaped from Scylla and Charybdis. The book then shows Percy and Annabeth actually showing up to Cece's island on their raft, which we didn't see in the show. There they had actually been knocked out, found, and taken to the island, all while they were unconscious. The two are greeted by Cece herself in the book, while in the show they're greeted by Hilla. In the show, Cece was cursed to stay on the island, and not wanting to be alone, she created a program to teach sorcery to whoever showed up on the island. This program was a scam though, and her way of keeping people on the island that she herself could not leave. To keep this charade going, she helped 6 people cheat and claimed that their training got them past the sirens, giving everybody else hope that they could do it too. However, in the book, none of this was part of her story. She was not trapped on the island, but instead ran a spa there under her own free will. When Percy and Annabeth first arrived on the island, Cece took Percy right away and turned him into a guinea pig simply because he was a man and she hated men. And she did this to any man that showed up on her island, which leads to another difference. In the show, there were men walking around in her spa, but that was not the case in the book because they were all guinea pigs. In the show, she did not turn Percy into a guinea pig because he was a man, but because he figured out that her program was a scam and she didn't want Percy to expose her. This means that most of what happened in this episode was not in the book. Cece did not begin to train Percy and Annabeth. Cece did not help Percy figure out what his fatal flaw was. He actually found this out from Athena in the following book of the series. And on top of that, Percy did not have that talk with Zadie about the statues, nor was Zadie even a character in the novel. In the series, Annabeth met with Cece to show her the plan she had to get past the sirens, but in the book, they were together because Cece was trying to recruit her to stay on the island and leave men behind forever. Percy used water to alert Annabeth to the fact that he was a guinea pig in the series, but in the book, Annabeth just figured this out on her own. In the show, Cece had just straight up admitted that she was the witch PERCY.
I think I just figured out who you really are.
You mean Cersei? Because I'm not trying to hide.
But in the book, this was another thing that Annabeth had to figure out on her own. This scene was also much more intense in the novel because Annabeth held a knife to her throat at one point. Blackbeard befriended PERCY in the show.
Take your share, Percy. Much obliged.
But in the book, they were certainly not friends, as he and Annabeth stole Blackbeard's ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, to escape the island. Meanwhile, in the book, they did not take Blackbeard's ship, but just took a boat from Cersei's island. The siren scene was very different in the book, and actually had no connection to Cersei. Her challenge to pass the sirens did not exist in the novel. And this means that Percy and Annabeth did not watch the warrior get killed by the sirens alongside Cersei and everybody else that lived there. Also in the show, Annabeth tied Percy up while Annabeth planned to put wax in her ears. However, in the novel, Percy tied Annabeth up and he put the wax in his ears. Percy just got the wax from a candle that was on the ship, meaning the plotline where they stole it from Cersei was not a thing, and nor was her using magic to steal it back. The reason Percy plugged his ears and Annabeth was tied up in the novel is because Annabeth actually wanted to hear the sirens because their songs tell you truths about yourself that can make you wiser if you survive. Percy agreed to let her hear it as long as she was tied up. However, he forgot to disarm her, meaning that Annabeth cut herself loose and she began swimming toward the island. Percy jumped in after her though and stopped her before she reached the island with the sirens. Meanwhile in the show, Annabeth actually made it all the way to the island without Percy stopping her. The vision that Annabeth has when she meets the sirens is very different from book to show. In the show, she sees Percy, Grover, and Luke trying to work things out, and then sees her godly mother Athena arrive to save her, only to find out that she wasn't real. In the book though, her vision was both of her parents together after being divorced, sitting at a picnic with a reformed Luke, while they all sat in a city that Annabeth had designed as the architects. I mentioned earlier that Percy was the one who learned his fatal flaw at this point, but in the book, it was actually Annabeth that learned her fatal flaw at this point in the plot, and she learned it from the sirens, not Cersei. She discovered that her fatal flaw was Herbis, or deadly pride, because she thought she could do things better than anyone else. While Percy and Annabeth were on the ship, Annabeth told Percy why she disliked Tyson. She explained that a Cyclops separated herself, Luke, Thalia, and Grover on their way to Camp Half-Blood, which she thought led to Thalia's death because it slowed them down. We saw a glimpse of this in a flashback during the show, but it played out very differently. There, Annabeth was found by 3 Cyclops, and she was the only one captured. Then Thalia and Luke broke into the warehouse to save her. None of that was in the book though. In the book, it was just 1 Cyclops, and he trapped all 4 of them, not just Annabeth. In the show, Annabeth felt that Thalia's death was her fault because she wandered off and got captured. But in the book, she felt it was her fault because she didn't stab the Cyclops when she had the chance, and she got tricked by the Cyclops when he used her father's voice to speak to her. In the show, Percy has a dream that Kronos enters the big house, shoots him with lightning, and then underneath the hood is Thalia. Percy had a similar dream to this in the book, but it was a little different. There, he heard Kronos taunting him from inside his sarcophagus, and as he approached it, he was joined by Thalia. Thalia drew her sword and opened the sarcophagus, only for it to engulf her. In the book, when Percy and Annabeth arrive on Polyphemus' island, they see a lifeboat which belonged to Clarice, though at the time they didn't know who it belonged to. This differs from the show though, because there, Clarice did not arrive to the island on a boat, she was just washed up. Percy and Annabeth also meet flesh-eating sheep when they first arrive to the island, but the show cut these carnivorous sheep out of the story. The show has Luke and Annabeth speak through an iris message, and we see Annabeth try to convince Luke to switch sides. However, none of that happened in the novel. Percy and Annabeth put sheep hides over them in the series. But in the book, Percy actually held on to the non-flesh-eating sheep from underneath their belly, and Annabeth followed while under her invisibility cap. In the novel, when they reach the cave, they, and also we the audience, find out for the first time that Clarice is alive. However, in the show, we had known this for quite some time. And this brings me to an entire plotline that was added just for the show, which changed many things. All the cutaway scenes with Clarice and Grover were made up for the series. They didn't try to escape together, Clarice wasn't knocked out, and most of all, Polyphemus was not smart. In the book, he was stupid and easily tricked, but in the show, he tricked everyone and was actually incredibly intelligent.
From the beginning, I played the poor dumb beast for you.
In the novel, Polyphemus only discovered that Grover was a satyr because Clarice exposed his identity. But in the show, he knew it all along and was just pretending to be dumb. The show also had him use Clarice and Grover as bait to lure other demigods. But again, this did not happen in the book. On top of that, the smart Polyphemus from the show created a fake golden fleece, but the Polyphemus from the book did not. He was not smart enough to come up with something like that. Polyphemus was in the cave when Percy and Annabeth arrived in the book, but in the show, he had already left. This allowed for a sequence where Percy uses a rope to climb down, which is then cut by Polyphemus, which did not take place in the book. In the show, Percy, Clarice, and Grover were trapped in the cave from the giant boulder, while Annabeth distracted the Cyclops. But in the book, the rock was fully moved and all three of them got out. In the novel, Polyphemus picks Annabeth up and he holds her for quite some time, while Percy, Clarice, and Grover try to get her back. However, Polyphemus drops her on her head. This differs from the book, where he just simply punched her one time. A lot happens in the show before Annabeth is knocked out, none of which was in the novel. Grover finds the real fleece in the cave by using its scent, which smelled like Pan. Luke arrives on the island using his sword Backbiter to create a portal, and that point greatly differs from the book, because Luke never arrived on this island and was not part of the sequence at all. Moving on to what happens in the book after Annabeth is knocked out, Percy, Clarice, and Grover, who is holding Annabeth, run across the island. And when Polyphemus catches up with them, Percy attacks the Cyclops, fights him, and actually beats him, knocking him to the ground. Percy is ready to kill him until the Cyclops starts crying about his sheep. Percy says he'll spare his life if he lets them go with the fleece. But once Percy lowers his defenses, the Cyclops picks Percy up and is about to eat him. Then, that's when Tyson appears and knocks Polyphemus off the cliff. All of this was changed in the show though. They never have a chance to escape because they're all trapped in the cave. And instead of Tyson showing up to save Percy from Polyphemus, he shows up to save Annabeth from the Cyclops. Tyson and Polyphemus have an entire fight that didn't happen in the book. In the book, Tyson just hit him one time, and that was the hit that knocked him off the cliff. Also in the show, Tyson went off the cliff with Polyphemus, but that was not the case in the book. Adding to that, in the book, this is the first time we see Tyson following the explosion of the CSS Birmingham. But in the show, we actually found out he survived earlier, as we saw him underneath the water with Rainbow the hippocampus. This scene also had Annabeth's bracelet involved, but as said earlier, that bracelet did not exist in the book. The show has a whole sequence where Luke shows up at the cave and Percy struggles with the decision of whether or not to give him the fleece to save Annabeth. And ultimately, he decides to give it to him. Meanwhile, in the book, Percy and the others healed Annabeth with the fleece on their own after Polyphemus was knocked off the cliff. And Luke had no part of this because again, he was never on this island. Tyson came back to rescue them in the show, freeing them from the cave. But in the book, this didn't happen because 1, they were already out of the cave, and 2, Tyson was with them the whole time as he did not fall off the cliff with Polyphemus. While Polyphemus never came back after being knocked off the cliff in the show, in the book, he came back just as they were leaving. Here, he tries to sway Tyson, saying that they were both Cyclops, but Tyson refuses. In the show, Polyphemus did the same thing, but did it much earlier before he was knocked off the cliff, not after. The book also cut the moment where Tyson and Percy fight Polyphemus together. While Polyphemus died in the show, Percy and Tyson spared his life in the book. In the show, they escape on the hippocampi, but in the novel, that was not the original plan. They actually made it to the Queen Anne's Revenge, the boat they had stolen from Blackbeard. But when Polyphemus threw a boulder to destroy the ship, then that is when they rode on the hippocampi. Also in the show, Tyson calls the hippocampi to them with the bracelet. But again, the bracelet didn't exist in the show, so he didn't do that, he just called them normally. When they escaped in the book, they had both a conscious Annabeth and the Golden Fleece with them. However, in the show, they had neither because Luke had escaped with both. In the book, they arrive at Miami, and Percy sends Clarice away with the Golden Fleece to take it back to camp, and she rides a plane back to camp. However, in the show, Clarice does not leave at this point. She stays with Percy, Grover, and Tyson. In the show, they willingly enter the Princess Andromeda to rescue Annabeth. But in the book, they were captured and forced on the cruise ship when Luke arrived on the Miami beach. Luke showing up here for the first time is obviously another big change, because he had shown up much earlier in the plot for the show. In the book, both Tyson and Grover were taken onto the cruise ship, but in the series, they never actually go onto the Princess Andromeda, they stay on the dock the whole time. In the series, Annabeth has a dream that tells her that the Golden Fleece can bring Thalia back if they put it on the tree. However, this is a major difference, because in the book, nobody knew that this would happen. The show saw Luke putting the fleece on Kronos' sarcophagus, but this obviously did not happen in the book either because he never had the fleece on the cruise ship, as Clarice had already left with it before he captured Percy and the others. Pretty much everything that happens on the cruise ship in the show did not happen in the book. Luke and Annabeth did not have their talk about which side to join. Clarice didn't save Annabeth from the other demigods because 1. Annabeth was never taken by Luke from Polyphemus' island, and 2. Clarice was never on the Princess Andromeda. On top of that, Allison never took the order from Kronos to kill Annabeth, because obviously she was a character made just for the show. She was not in the book. Percy also never talked to Kronos' sarcophagus either.
I knew that you would return to me. I remember what you said, that my survival is the key to your return.
That was a scene made just for the series as well. Percy and Luke did fight each other in the novel, but it went down very differently than it did in the show. In the book, Percy challenged Luke to a one-on-one fight while on the top deck, and this was in front of everyone. Meanwhile, in the show, Luke was the one who initiated the fight, and it was just the two of them with no one else watching. In the show, Luke won by stabbing Percy in the stomach, but in the book, Luke won by injuring Percy's leg. This also meant that Percy didn't use the fleece to heal himself because the fleece was never on the cruise ship. During their fight in the book, Percy secretly set up an iris message that went directly to camp, and he got Luke to admit that he was the one who stabbed Thalia's tree, clearing Chiron's name. However, in the show, everyone already knew it was Luke because they saw him do it, so this iris message never needed to take place. As I said, in the book, Clarice fulfilled the prophecy by flying the fleece back to camp on an airplane. However, in the show, she flew back to camp on the Pegasus Blackjack. Percy and Clarice also had a much more emotional and touching goodbye in the show than they did in the book. Percy apologizes.
You trusted me with your prophecy and I used it against you. I'm sorry.
And Clarice actually calls Percy by his real name rather than just Jackson.
Thanks, Percy.
Which she never does in this novel, The Sea of Monsters. Sally Jackson, Percy's mom, saved all of them from the cruise ship in the series, and she drove them to camp. But this did not happen in the book. Sally had no part in any of this conflict. In the novel, Clarice makes it back to the camp to deliver the fleece with no problem. But in the show, she doesn't make it while flying on Blackjack, and has to continue to camp on foot in a hostile situation. This means that the whole sequence with her being chased by Chris revealing his true allegiance, and Clarice being saved by Grover and Annabeth on the chariot did not happen in the novel. In fact, pretty much everything that happened in the season finale did not happen in the book. The camp had small attacks here and there from monsters in the novel, but Luke never came to camp with an army of demigods and monsters for a coordinated attack. This means that this whole final battle did not take place, Luke and Percy did not have a second fight, and Tyson did not save Percy with the trident. Also, Allison did not shoot Annabeth with an arrow because again, she was not a character in the book. Tantalus did not die from a fireball, he was just sent back to the underworld at the end of the book. Percy wasn't captured by the Camp Half-Blood campers and brought to Dionysus, and Percy never gave that speech to rally everyone. Instead, when we look at the novel, the final battle actually took place back on the cruise ship. We're going all the way back to Luke and Percy's fight while on the Princess Andromeda. After Luke defeated Percy and after he ordered his monsters to eat Grover, Annabeth, and Tyson, Chiron arrives accompanied by his centaur relatives, or the party ponies. A battle breaks out, they fight off Luke and his army, and Percy and the others escape on the backs of the centaurs. They then ride on the centaurs' backs as they take them back to Camp Half-Blood. In the show though, the role of taking them from the cruise ship back to camp was of course done by Sally Jackson. Now, as I said, in the show, everybody already knew that the fleece would bring Thalia back to life, thanks to the dream that Annabeth had. But in the book, nobody knew this when they put the fleece on the tree. In the show, the fleece was thrown on by Clarice during the heat of battle, and Thalia was released from it right away, screaming, but in the novel, Clarice just gently placed the fleece on the tree after all the fighting had stopped. And they actually left it there for days with nothing happening. She did not return right away like she did in the show. In the meantime, there's a lot that the show cut out. They held another chariot race, which Percy, Annabeth, and Tyson teamed up for, and they ended up winning. While Sally had a part in the final battle and saving Percy and the others in the show, in the book, Percy only talked to her over the phone just to let her know that he was okay. Percy also has a conversation with Hermes where Percy apologizes for not being able to get through to Luke. Hermes then gives Percy a letter from his father which says, "Brace yourself." And later, Percy has a very quick dream where his father says the same thing to him, which he also said in the show.
Brace yourself.
The show made a much bigger deal of this dream though, and actually had them have a whole conversation about much more than just that. During this scene in the show, Tyson also showed up, and they discussed how Tyson had prayed for a friend, and Poseidon answered that prayer by having him meet Percy.
I prayed to the gods for help. I prayed for a friend, and now I sent a brother.
In the book though, this talk about his prayers being answered was just a conversation between Percy and Tyson. Poseidon was not there for that. When Percy had this dream with his father in the show, he was asleep for 3 days after being knocked out by Thalia's lightning. But in the book, he was never knocked out. This also means that the scene where he wakes up to Grover and Annabeth, where they say that he drools in his sleep, did not take place either.
Okay, say it.
You drool in your sleep.
In the show, Chiron speaks to Percy, Grover, and Annabeth after the battle, and he speaks to them about the prophecy and also tells them that Kronos is his father. However, in the book, Chiron told Grover and Annabeth to leave, and Chiron had this conversation with just Percy. Also in the book, this conversation took place before Thalia returned, while in the show it took place after she returned. The show also added a lot to this conversation, as Chiron tells them that he witnessed Thalia being turned into the tree, which he did not in the book. He also says that the Furies sent by Hades did not try to kill Thalia, which was the case in the novel, but rather that they gave her a message about her father using her to fulfill the great prophecy. On top of that, Chiron says that Zeus did not turn Thalia into a tree to save her, but rather to punish her for not obeying him and going to Camp Half-Blood like he said. In the book though, this didn't happen. He just spared her life in the only way he could, which was turning her into a tree. It was not at all a punishment there. Also, the show had Zeus show up in person, but he was never physically there for any of this in the book. He just did this all from the sky. As mentioned, when Thalia was released from the tree in the show, she yelled, "Never!" and she shot out lightning. She did neither of these things when she was revived in the book though. In the novel, it was a complete surprise when the fleece revived Thalia, and this was the big twist ending. The twist ending in the show though was slightly different. While Thalia did still wake up unexpectedly, it was not from the tree, but from the coma she was in after being released from the tree 3 days prior. In the show, Thalia had a reunion with Annabeth and then asked where Luke was.
Where's Luke?
But she did not do or say this in the book. There, when she woke up, she simply said her name was Thalia and that she was the daughter of Zeus. And that is everything that season 2 of the Percy Jackson series changed from the Sea of Monsters book. And wow, they changed a lot. I did not realize how daunting this video would be when I first started making it. I did not expect there to be that many changes. Let me know in the comments below what you think of everything the show added, cut, or changed. I'm very interested to hear your thoughts. If you liked this video, I did a breakdown for all 8 episodes of season 2. Right here is the season finale breakdown. And over here is a playlist with all of the episode breakdowns I did for both season 2 as well as for season 1. That's all I have for you guys today though. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.